who wins, the most powerful man or the most richest man? Elon Musk and Trump. Who wins?
Oh, I see. Well, when you say, or when I say that capitalism controls the society, it doesn't mean the individual capitalist. It means capitalism as a whole. This is the mistake with the argument Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, Elon Musk. That's the mistake with that argument. Because it means it's too personalised. And therefore, it implies replace the one with a good person and something better happens. We've got Robert Kennedy Jr. You may remember those of us who were opposed to the lockdowns and opposed to the vaccine mandates, etc. Robert Kennedy Jr. looked like a good character as an alternative. Spoke the right talk. Actually, Martin here pointed out he was a Zionist, which at the time I thought was not relevant, but clearly I was wrong. And then, okay. The issue then being, put him in instead of someone else, instead of Anthony Fauci or whatever. Does it make that much difference? Not as much as you would have thought, you know. And so when it comes onto this question of Elon Musk and Donald Trump is acting on behalf of a lobby that encircle Donald Trump and surround him. When Donald Trump stood for election and when Robert Kennedy Jr. stood for election, when they sided together, when Elon Musk sided with them, all the talk was, under Donald Trump there'll be no wars. He'll bring the war to an end within 24 hours. That was what he said. So clearly, either Donald Trump has no power, is an utter and complete hypocrite, perfectly possible.
It's circumstances.
Or someone not only circumcised but castrated.
Yes.
Or someone has castrated that bold individual who declared so much determination to change the fate of America. And yet, in free speech, in the wars, in the power of big tech and big pharma, nothing has happened to restrict their power. In relation to the war party, well, nothing has been done to stop any of the wars around the world. In fact, it's quite clear from yesterday's events that Donald Trump knew fully well in advance what the Israelis were planning to do, to launch an unprovoked attack on Iran, so that Netanyahu and his buddies can try and distract attention from the barbarity they're carrying out in Gaza and rally the Western world under the cover of a bullshit argument explanation as to why we are fighting against Iran. And they want to drag Netanyahu and his Zionist allies in the United States of America, want to drag Donald Trump and the United States of America into war with Iran. That's what's going on. So this farce that Donald Trump had some independent power, that he was deciding himself what would happen in the United States of America. Now you've got, and the privacy issue, remember that? COVID, digital technology, privacy, secrecy. Last week they signed a deal with Palantir to take over all the United States data on its own population. And Palantir are the same people who use the data that Israel collects on the Palestinian people to target and kill them. Why would you imagine that a company whose operation is to target and kill people who are opposed to the existing order of society run by the Zionists in the United States of America and the Middle East at the moment, that those people are somehow benign forces when it comes to making a deal with Donald Trump? Donald Trump clearly is not as clever as ketamine-fueled Elon Musk, but nevertheless, these companies encircle him and control him. And so the idea that you have some grand, independent, democratic, free world that we're supposed to be protecting. I got in an argument, some of you know this guy, Konstantin Kursin. I got in an argument with him this week about these type of issues as well. He's going, oh, the West is free. So we must protect the West and the Western world and Western values. And that's not, of course, what Gaza's about. That's not, of course, what Russia's about. Russia wants to control all of you. So you've got this moron, Keir Starmer, rolled out every couple of days to tell you stories, not about what's going on with these Ukrainian rent boys who are put in prison for setting fire to his house, his car, and his old house. 3 Ukrainian rent boys suddenly set fire to Keir Starmer's house. What a strange event. But of course, none of you are supposed to discuss this, and nowhere is it in the news. Nowhere is it in the news.
Peculiar and peculiar.
More and more peculiar. Ever more peculiar. And then, but Keir Starmer is a great wisdom when they roll him out and they, Russia is a danger to you. Russia wants to kill you and have you speaking Russian. They had this guy, Mark Rutte. I believe he used to be NATO head or something like that. He came on television this week. He said the same thing. Either we prepare for war with Russia or we'll all be speaking Russian. Oh, pull the other one. Really, pull the other one. I remember the Cold War. I started speaking here in 1985 when the Cold War was raging. Margaret Thatcher was saying, oh yes, Russia's going to invade. And you're going to, if you vote Labour, this was 1987, vote Labour, and this is Labour's policy on arms. And we need to spend money on weapons to prepare for war with the Soviet Union, to destroy the Soviet, who want to conquer us. It was complete and absolute bullshit. As it is today, the idea that Russia has any interest in going beyond Ukraine is simply farcical. It's simply farcical. And we are told, for example, you know the big story they got, the weeping story they give you. Oh, but Ukrainian babies were taken away from the Donbass and taken to Russia. They've kidnapped them and taken them to Russia. What? Sorry? Well, that's what I'm saying. Why don't the same people who scream about that say that about the children in Gaza? If Israel was to capture, if Israel, instead of going in and blowing up the whole of Gaza, had gone in and saved the children, then they wouldn't be able to turn around and say, oh, every baby that we killed was hiding in front of a Hamas leading terrorist, which is the sort of bullshit that the Israelis spin to you every single day. That's the bullshit they sell you. And from watching these Israeli stooges talking about these points, I mean, not talking about our friend over here, who clearly is deranged on these questions, but the ones they get on television, on the pretty-looking ones, the IDF fighters who've had their hair just done and wriggle on, twerking videos and whatever. You twerk your way to the Holocaust. That's their game. They try and manipulate the minds of people in the West to support Israel, despite every barbarity that Israel carries out. And they are better, I admit. The Israeli intelligence agencies and the Israeli media campaign is a bit better than Adolf Hitler. It's a bit better than Adolf Hitler. Hitler had a certain support. For example, the King of England supported Hitler, and Winston Churchill supported Mussolini. Of course, and of course we killed 3 million people in West Bengal at the same time as the Nazis were killing people in Auschwitz, about 3 million people. But the propaganda from the Israelis is a bit superior to that. They managed to convince quite a lot of idiots in the West who are safe and comfortable and think, oh, the Muslim moved next door. I don't like them. They're refugees off a boat. I don't like them. And so that's what we're fighting in Palestine. If we don't fight them in Palestine, they're all going to come on a little boat from France and stay in a travelodge in Luton. And then out comes Mr. Lutonian, the King of Luton. Yeah? Mr. What's his name again? Oh, Yaxley Tommy. who's going to come down here soon again, don't forget, he'll soon be back at Speaker's Corner. They're waiting for the ideal moment. And he's claiming to be a defender of free speech. That's what they're saying. This man is the defender of free speech on earth. Nigel Farage, but he's only a paper tiger compared with our hero, the man who's prepared to go to prison, Tommy. Because Tommy, don't forget, is again an agent of the Israelis. People used to tell me these things, and I thought, oh, is that anti-Semitic? I thought, is that anti-Semitic? Is it a conspiracy theory? Is it all a plot? Is it all false? But the truth of the matter is, it is so far-fetched. The influence of Israel in the United States of America and in Britain, the Israel lobby, is quite extraordinary. Not only there, by the way, but there's many people gone to Egypt in the last few days to march to Gaza. And what do they encounter? They encounter the Egyptian army acting on behalf of Israel. And the British are meeting up, I think the Prime Minister of England, when he's not playing with the Ukrainian Red Boys, he meets up with the Saudi Arabian leaders. The Saudi Arabian leaders. Because the Saudi Arabian leaders are also in league with Israel. When the Iranians Godspeed their missiles hitting Tel Aviv, when the Iranians Godspeed their missiles hitting Tel Aviv and breaking through that iron dome they've got there, when the Iranians, the Jordanians sit back and they help the Israelis. They help the Israelis. So much for Arab solidarity. So much for Muslim solidarity, by the way. So much for Muslim solidarity. When the countries which are supposedly run by Muslims are actually in league with Israel, the great Satan, as they call them. So, well, that may well be. I mean, they're dictators in Iran as well. The Iranians, unfortunately, the mistake they made was to think, okay, Donald Trump's a deal maker. Maybe he's going to make a deal with Iran. And all this hysteria in the newspapers, the British newspapers, the European newspapers, all talking about how Iran must be stopped from getting nuclear bombs. It has long been known, since the 1980s, it's been known that Israel has got at least 200 nuclear weapons. Since the 1980s, this has been known. Illegally has 200 nuclear weapons. These are the people who are supposedly our allies. And the British turn around, when the Iranians Godspeed their missiles, send missiles to hit Israel, the British government turns around and says, we stand with Israel. How do we stand with Israel? How many of us have been asked if we stand with Israel? Stand with barbarity? Stand with genocide? Stand with Holocaust? I don't think so. And I don't think you'll find many people in Britain who do actually stand with Israel. So how come is it, the question you asked earlier on, that the billionaires and the politicians all have the same position on this? All have the same position. They're all behind Israel. They're all behind Donald Trump and Netanyahu. They say once in a while, oh, Netanyahu's a bad guy. Netanyahu is supposed to be put on trial at the International Criminal Court. Who did Keir Starmer talk with yesterday? Netanyahu. Netanyahu on the phone, a polite conversation about their common campaign against Iran.
Whereas Duterte was arrested in Holland.
Sorry? Yes. Utter and complete hypocrisy. I don't support the Iranian government, but the Iranians have the right to fire against Israel 10 times or 100 times more than they've done so far. Because the Israelis have been carrying out barbarities in Gaza, in front of the entire world's view, in front of the whole view of the world, and no one's doing anything. At least the Iranians are standing up a little bit. Not as much as the Yemenis, but at least a little bit standing up to them. and we should encourage them. Britain should be supplying weapons to fight the Israelis, not the other way around. This nonsense where Britain is an agent of the Israelis and an agent of America. What sort of madness is this? What sort of lunatic asylum are we living in? That we're backing the Holocaust, we're backing the genocide. Every day they talk about 40 babies killed. 40 babies killed. What about October the 7th? On October the 7th, at least 200 of those who were killed by the Israelis themselves, so they wouldn't be captured. That was admitted by the former defense minister of Israel. Admitted by him. Hannibal directive, as you say, meant kill your own people. Kill your own people so that they get taken hostage. When there were hostage deals, what happened? 10 people captured by Hamas were released for 200 people captured by the Israelis. How come they weren't classified as kidnapped, as hostages? Because that's what they were. That's what the Israelis have shown by releasing them in exchange. And there were no charges against nearly all of them. No charges at all. They simply got put in prison. Picked them off the street because Palantir tells them they're an enemy. Pick them off the street, stick them in a prison. From 9, 10, 11 years of age, children put in prison in Israel without charge, without trial. Well, that's what a dictatorial, authoritarian regime does. That's what they do. And of course, even in Israel, there are some people, not many, but some people, and they are important. Amongst the Jews in Israel, there are some people who are fighting against the government. And they're quite militant in fighting this. Ultimately, they are the only future of Israel. The only future of Israel rests in their hand. To the degree that Israel can exist, it will be dependent upon how they act and how they influence the others. And they can influence them. Don't forget, although 80% are said to be supporting the genocide against the Palestinians, according to opinion polls, well, we'll see. Even if it's 50%, it's still way too high. But if that's the case, the only people who can shift them will be those who are actively acting against the government. And you know what it's like? When the turn happened with COVID here, everyone was calling this man a plague rat, calling me and you a plague rat, calling all of us plague rats who opposed what they were doing.
Just the idiots.
All of these people were calling this. But now they changed their position. Now you hardly find anyone who says, oh, the vaccines were good. YouTube might say it, but not many other people say it. You'll hardly find anyone who says the lockdowns were a good idea. You'll hardly find any journalist who says, go and take your latest COVID vaccination, even if the WHO recommends it. The tide has turned. After the Second World War, my mother's German. When the war ended, she came to England. There was no animosity towards her. They didn't hate and kill and fight. That's the lie that the Israel lobby wants to present. They want to say, well, if we stop now, then we'll be slaughtered in our beds by the Palestinians. We'll be slaughtered in our beds by the Muslims. That's not how reality works. People don't want war. They don't want slaughter. They don't want genocide. When it ends, they want a reckoning. That doesn't mean they want a bloodbath. They want a reckoning. They want those in command. They want those in control. They want to eliminate the structures that gave rise to this. Not just the mindset, but the practices of what was done. And they want a reckoning, they want admission, they want honesty from those who perpetrated the deeds to say, I was wrong, I should not have, I wish I hadn't, I'll regret it all my life. Even people in Britain whose children have been murdered by some lunatic killer. If that person in the dock says, I beg your forgiveness, I don't expect it, people turn around and say, at least we got that. That's what people want from Israel. They want the Jewish people in Israel to say, we were wrong, it was wrong, and it will never happen again, and we will live in peace and harmony with our neighbours and construct together. That's what they want to hear. That's all they really want to hear. And that the war will end and Netanyahu will be put on trial. Or will fly out as he did yesterday to a Greek island to escape the threat of bombs landing on his head. However, I am not a pacifist. Pacifism, the problem with it is you put down your arms and you say, you can kill me, instead of me being prepared to fight. The Iranians are right to send missiles to blow up Israel, because Israel only understands power. Power internally of the internal opposition, power externally of the military attacks, power in Gaza of the resistance movement fighting against them. That is all Israel can understand, and sometimes war is like that. War is the mother of revolutionary change. Let us hope that this battle against the people of Gaza and the battle against the people of the Middle East results in revolutionary change, as it has after many wars in history. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen.